Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. Or welcome if you're new. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we are going to make this beautiful Monstera leaf tumbler. So please make sure to like and subscribe and enjoy the video. To start off, we are using a prepped tumbler. This is a 20-ounce tumbler from Craft Haven, and I am simply spraying it all over with black spray paint. Super important that when you are spray painting for this particular design, that you are getting full coverage all over the entire tumbler, because it is going to be a main part of this design. I am holding my spray paint can roughly about, I want to say about 8 to 10 inches away from the tumbler. And I am working in short bursts. This helps ensure that there is no dripping. Super important that we don't have drips on this particular tumbler. Like I said, it is part of the design. So once you've got that fully spray painted, you're going to want to allow it to completely dry. I did allow this to dry for about 20 to 30 minutes before I moved to my next step. So our next step to prepare, I am going to do one single coat of epoxy. I am using Alumilite's quick coat. And then I am going to make sure that that is fully cured. It typically takes about 2 to 4 hours, depending upon the temperature of your workspace. Once we have this fully mixed, and there are minimal bubbles and it's clear, we're going to simply apply it on to our tumbler. I'm making sure that when I'm applying it, that I am doing it in thin, even layers. And then once I have got my entire cup epoxied, I am going to go ahead and use my torch and make sure that I have got any micro bubbles completely popped. Okay, now that all of our bubbles are popped, I am going to show you how I did my decals. So I did use Cricut Design Space, and I selected this Monstera plant leaf from Creative Fabrica. I will link Creative Fabrica in the description box. That way you guys can utilize it. If you want, you can definitely get a monthly membership. And you get all of these designs absolutely free with a membership. So once I had my Monstera leaves all set up and my Cricut was connected, I made sure that I selected the vinyl setting that I wanted. Now, please learn from my mistake. I did have a textured holographic vinyl, which you're going to see here in a little bit, that I did not put more pressure on. So in turn, it did not cut accurately. So I was unable to use those particular leaves on my design. I was a little sad about it, but it actually turned out okay in the long run. But just make sure that your pressure is where you need it so that it cuts accurately. Once that is completed, now on to the weeding. So here you're going to see this beautiful vinyl that I actually ended up having to throw away because it did not cut correctly. I tried to salvage the leaves, but it did not work at all. So again, super important that you are selecting the right amount of pressure when you are cutting. So I would suggest that on this one, do your premium textured vinyl and then definitely select more. I did attempt to recut my vinyl, but still was pretty unsuccessful with that, to say the least. So I used this holographic vinyl. I actually got this from a vinyl shop out in Phoenix, Arizona. What I will say is I probably would not use this particular vinyl for this design again. And you'll see here that it didn't want to lay flat. Air bubbles were all over the place. And because it's a holographic vinyl, it did, like, popping them made it worse. So I did end up pivoting at the end and mattifying this tumbler cup to kind of hide the air bubbles. It doesn't hide them entirely, but it definitely makes them less noticeable. But I thought it was important that I kept this piece in. And the reason for that is because we all encounter roadblocks like this. So I think it's important to talk about them, and I think it's important to talk about what we did to maneuver, anything like that. But anywho, I did rub my tumbler down with 91% alcohol, and I am using my gloves to apply the vinyl. Now, the reason that I did this is because the epoxies will hold on to my fingerprints, and I didn't want my fingerprints on the Monstera plants, and I didn't want my fingerprints on the actual tumbler for when I went in for my final coats of epoxy. This will make sure that it's got a nice, clean finish. So here I'm just trying to see what would be the best place as far as laying this vinyl down. And as you can see, as I get through that other half of the leaf, it did not lay right. So I am using my knife, my craft knife, to help me pull this back up in hopes that I'll be able to lay it better this next go round. But again, this vinyl was very unforgiving. So it just really, really struggled on the surface of this tumbler. I'm not sure 100% if it was the vinyl, if it was me, if it was the vinyl over the epoxy. I'm not really sure what caused this, but while the vinyl is absolutely beautiful, it may be best used for other crafts. So I did try to pop some of those bubbles and started to kind of panic inside because it was making it look so much worse. So I decided that I was going to go ahead. I was going to lay down the rest of them. Maybe it was just that particular leaf. That wasn't the case. This vinyl, like I said, gave me a run for my money for sure. But I want to show you guys that we all run into situations like this. So here at the end, I'll talk through how I tried to disguise that. This cup was made for my little brother, so I wasn't too worried, but I'm glad that I found this out doing a cup for a family member versus one for a customer, because I definitely would not have sent this cup out to a customer whatsoever. But I'm going to go ahead and let this play through and let you guys listen to some music. and now that I am done with the struggle bus, of which was this vinyl, I am going to go ahead and put on my final coats of epoxy. For this, I did do 2 final coats of 20 mLs of Alumilite's Quick Coat Epoxy to finish off this cup. And while you are watching me epoxy this, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I tried to minimize the look of the bubbles, because it was very apparent they were there. So I used Counterculture's DIY's final sand. I used the white pad that comes with the product. So there's a maroon and a white pad. I used the white pad. I put it on there dry, and I literally did it for about 10 minutes, checked it to make sure that it was good and matte. And once it was to my satisfaction, I dried off the cup and got it packaged up. But here you are going to see the final product with it shiny, and then also with it with the matte finish. I did a poll on my social, and actually turns out that everybody really liked the matte better than the shiny. So it was a win-win and a good learning lesson. But I want to thank you guys all for coming back, liking and subscribing. Your support means the world to me. And I will see you guys next week.